And now that we're recording, I'd like to turn the host of the meeting over to CD, who will talk about performance in education.
Okay, thank you so much, Linda. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Performance in Education SIG Forum. Yay, thank you for coming here. So my name is CD. My name is Chayank Dhar Singh Rathore. Let's go with CD for convenience. I teach at Soka University in Tokyo, Japan, and I will be your facilitator for the Performance in Education SIG Forum today. So I have a few housekeeping announcements. I think Linda has already taken care of that, but in case you haven't, please keep yourselves on mute so that we can avoid any noise disturbances. Regarding question and answer session, we are going to have it at the end of the session. We are going to create 3 breakout rooms so that you can have more active interaction with 3 panelists per breakout room. So if you have any questions, please save them for the end. I have also posted a handout in the chat. It says PIE SIG Forum handout. This has all the important terminology that we'll be talking about today, and also other details about the presenters and more things about our SIG. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists to begin. We have Ashley Ford, who teaches at Nagoya City University. She focuses on using music performance and filmmaking activities in her class, and she's also organizing a student showcase and a film festival for English language learners. Welcome, Ashley.
Hello, thank you.
Our next panelist is Chelsea Schwartz. Chelsea teaches at Juntendo University in Tokyo, and she specializes in a performer herself. She specializes in using music in the EFL context. Welcome, Chelsea.
Thank you, CD.
Our next panelist is David Kluge. He teaches at Nanzan University, and in his 35 years of experience of teaching English in Japan, he has used speech, drama, debate, oral interpretation, readers' theater, oral communication, material writing, and composition in his classes. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Eukarya Donnery. Eukarya works in the Department of Applied Computer Sciences at Shonan Institute of Technology in Kanagawa. She is a practitioner of call, drama, presentation skills, and communication management. Welcome, Eukarya.
Thank you very much, CD. Hello, everyone.
Our next panelist is Yvonne Wong, who teaches at Soka University in Tokyo, and she specializes in using public speaking, oral presentation, and drama in her classrooms. Welcome, Yvonne.
Hello, thank you, CD, and hello, everyone.
Our next panelist is George McLean. George teaches at the University of Ryukyus in Okinawa, and he uses PIE as well as ICT implementation in his classes. Welcome, George.
Thank you, CD. Thank you, everyone.
Our next panelist is Gordon Rees, who is also a coordinator. Gordon teaches at Yokkaichi University in Mie Prefecture, and he specializes in using performance-assisted learning through radio dramas and readers' theater in his classes. Welcome, Gordon.
Thank you, CD.
Our next panelist is Vivian Businger-Kawari. She is an associate professor at Kwansei Gakuin University in Hyogo Prefecture, and her interests include performance in education, heritage language education, and TESOL. Welcome, Vivian.
Thank you, CD. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the forum.
And our last panelist is Yukari Saiki. Yukari teaches at Tokai University, and she organizes Minna no Impro in Yamanashi Lifelong Learning. Welcome, Yukari.
Thank you, CD. Hi, everybody.
So as you can see, we have a big all-star cast for our panel discussion today. And without further ado, let's begin. I would like to invite Gordon, the coordinator of our SIG, to have some opening comments. And also, my beginning question is to Gordon. Gordon, how would you define performance in education? Over to you.
Thanks, CD. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the PIE SIG Forum. First, I just want to thank everyone in the audience for making the effort to come today. I know lately with online teaching, a lot of extra work can be really taxing. I also want to thank the group of panelists that we gathered here today. Thank you for coming today. Anyways, what is the Performance in Education SIG, and what does performance in education mean? When you have a chance, take a look at your handout that we've sent out on page 7 through 9. David Kluge has done a fantastic job of explaining who we are and what kind of activities we do. Just a little brief history. We started off in 2011 as the Speech, Drama, and Debate SIG, but we changed our name in 2018 to the PIE SIG because we think it broadens the name, and we felt that by changing the name to PIE SIG, we could attract more people that don't fit into the traditional speech, drama, and debate category, but who do use performance in their classes. So our members use performance in some way in the classroom. If you look at page 5 and 6 in the handout, we put together a list of frequently used PIE terminology, which includes many of the types of performance that we utilize in the classroom. You will see there that PIE includes performance assisted learning, or PAL, as well as performance-based learning. In PAL, the key is the A, the assist. The performance itself is not the main focus of the course. The performance is used across the curriculum to teach, reinforce, and evaluate content. For example, I use radio drama in a reading class to try and help deepen understanding of the material we read. I also use readers theater in an English communication class to build student confidence for speaking in front of others. It's not the focus of the course, but the performance helps me attain the goals that I want to in the class. In performance-based learning, the performance is the focus of the course. An example would be a debate class or a presentation class, where the debates you do in the class or the presentations are the main components of the course. Our panelists will be using some of this terminology today. I know it may be a little confusing, but I hope it makes, this definition makes it a little clearer what PIE is. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. And now I have an opening question for all of our panelists. I will invite you by your names to give your response. My first question is, why do you like to use performance-assisted learning or performance in education in your classes? And could you give us an example of a particularly successful activity you have done in your class? Panelists, you're going to have 2.5 minutes for your response. I would first like to invite Vivian. Vivian, how about you?
Thank you, CD. So the first question, let me just review here. So why do you like to use PAL in your classes? So I think the main point here is that students get really engaged, and it's an opportunity to solidify the learning. We can teach different contents or even use textbooks, depends on the classes that we have, but many times they're gaining all this knowledge and learning all this content, but they don't have the opportunity to use it. And we know that we also want to bring authenticity into the classroom. So I think PAL really helps us to allow them to use what they've learned and gives them an opportunity to become more engaged, build confidence, and develop so many other skills in the process of doing performances. If I name a few of the activities I often use, I really like to use video making in my intercultural communication class. So for a few weeks, we look into commercials and advertisements, and we compare cultures and how cultures express different ideas, or if they use, you know, humor or suspense, or if they're high context, low context, things like that. And after comparing some commercials from different countries, I ask students to create their own commercials. So they do short videos for those, and they have to create 2 commercials for the same product. They create the product, and so they have to express intercultural communication, things that we've learned in class through the videos that they create. So that's one thing that I really like to use. I don't want to take over too much time, so I'm going to stop here. Hopefully it's not been 2.5 minutes. Thank you, CD.
Thank you so much, Vivian. Yukari, how about you? Yukari Saiki?
Okay, a very similar name, so that's me, right?
Yeah, that's you.
Okay, I think if you need to speak in the target language, for example, I'm teaching Japanese, so my students are the people who wants to learn Japanese. It takes effort. You have to push yourself, and it requires practice and practice. But sometimes repetition is tedious. But if you have a specific goal, you can put up and you can continue to challenge. Students at the time, like using their language and their performance, they look very happy. They focus on what they are doing. They are something, they show their real face. I like seeing their real faces. So, and then one example is this semester, it's a basically Zoom class. My student came to my Zoom Japanese beginner class from 4 countries, including Turkmenistan, Thailand, China, and Japan. And one day I asked them to send me their favorite photo. They sent unique pictures such as Turkmenistan bread. Do you know Turkmenistan bread? It's so beautiful. It's very flat, and then there is a stamp of flowers. Or Thai cool powder. Do you know Thai cool powder? Thailand is very hot, so if you put that powder, you feel very cool. So something like that. And China is, of course, dumpling. So I kind of organize those pictures like a kamishibai, that's a paper theater, and students explained to their classmate, what is that? And they ask a question to the audience, and that was really fun. That's the example.
Thank you so much. George, how about you? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you, CD. I guess, why do I use PAL in my classes? The number one reason is because...
George, could you try to increase the volume of your mic? We cannot hear you.
I have my headphones on backwards. Is
perfect.
that better? Okay,
yes,
thank you. Number one reason I use PAL in my classes is because it's fun. It's fun. Students really like it. They enjoy it. And again, you know, look at the terminology that we're using here. Often, particularly at a university level, people talk about lectures. And lectures are about the teacher talking and the students listening. PAL is about the students being active and involved and at the center of things. And that is just the absolute crucial part of whatever you do. When I joined the PAL SIG, when it was actually the speech, drama, and debate SIG, I had this image of, oh, okay, it's drama, and I'm not really good at that sort of thing. And I don't know if I'm comfortable using it in my classes. But it's not just about that. And as you start to use it, and as you, for example, today, joining this forum and attending different PAL events, wow, it's just such a creative boost. It's amazing. It's transformed the way that I teach, for sure. So some of the successful examples, 2 that came directly from my participation in this SIG would be Reader's Theater, using Reader's Theater with my students, and that's been very successful in multiple circumstances. And then taking a chance doing student newscasts, where I said, okay, guys, we're gonna make some newscasts and you're gonna record them. That was just incredibly successful. And I guess that, you know, the focus of my research, the crux of my research is about oral presentations. And so that I have found has been the most successful part of what I'm doing. And as far as like having students do presentations in a class, if you have like a larger class, like 20 people, and you're saying, okay, a 3-minute presentation, that can consume a lot of time. So this is where kind of, okay, how can you make that meaningful for students beyond their own presentation, where they get involved in other students' presentations, and they're deploying critical thinking skills, they're reinforcing each other with like peer evaluation or peer discussion. And it's been a very, very constructive process, and ICT has helped it a lot. So I hope to talk more about that as we go.
Thank you. Chelsea, how about you?
Okay, so yeah, the main reason I'm using PAL in my classes, as George said, it's really fun, but I think the other important part is because it builds confidence for students. And I think that's especially relevant in Japan. with the way the educational system is, it's very like written and grammar based, and students, they're not really confident in speaking because they don't really get that that element in their educational background. So I think it's really important to incorporate it into the learning process. And that's the main reason I use it. So it gives them chances to speak and perform and just build that overall confidence that they need to be successful in the language. So that's basically why I use it. And then I've done a lot of different activities. As CD said before, I'm a performer and I'm really into music. So I use a lot of music, and I've used drama. And a couple things that were successful had to do with holidays, because I actually like to teach about holidays in the class too. I think that's important for a cultural aspect. So last year for Halloween, we had like a Halloween party, and one element was the students had to be in groups and make their own story. And I told them they cannot copy a story or anything. They had to write their own original story and act it out. And I think it was very challenging at first, but I tried to guide them with it and help them. And then they had a lot of fun with it. Everybody was really entertained. So that turned out really well. And a few years ago when I was teaching at SOCA, we had a Christmas event, and I wanted the students to do songs. And I told them they could either write a song or choose a Christmas song in English. And most of them chose a song that's already made, and one group wrote their own song. And they really got into it. Like I told them they could have costumes, props, and they did great. One group was giving out candy, and like they were so involved. So I really enjoyed seeing that. And I was really proud to see their confidence and everything executed through. So it was really great, both of those activities.
Thank you, Chelsea. Yvonne, how about you?
Okay. Thank you, CD. So first I'll answer why do I like to implement PAL in my class? Because I could improvise the existing materials and provide students more opportunities for like authentic output. So one of the successful activities that I did in class, it was a public speaking project. So instead of asking students to memorize their writing project, which is not ideal, so I actually guided them to build their own presentations, not presentations, their speeches. Okay, so I had the opportunity to had an exchange in a high school a few years ago. So I stumbled upon this show and tell thing. So they have this like small group like sharing, they just showcase their precious items and tell the story behind it. So I wanted to implement this in public speaking. So so I guided them like through a few phases. So first they would share this item like they normally would, and then I slowly guided them to elaborate their speeches by making questions for themselves, like to answer 5W and 1H. So in that way, they could like elaborate their speeches. And also because this is something dear to them, it's not like presenting something that is like little to no relation to themselves. So they actually were telling their stories and almost cried on their presentation. So it was so moving. Yes, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. David, how about you?
Thank you, CD. Like many people here, probably I come from an academic background, and my interests were chemistry and mathematics, and I learned a lot of things from reading. But then, when I was a young boy, age about 12, about 50 years ago, a half century ago, I got involved in debate, drama, and speech, and oral interpretation or reader's theater. And I just found that I learned a lot better, and I learned a lot and had a lot more fun learning. And I realized that there may be other people who are like that, who prefer to study from books, but when they get the chance to try learning from performance as in giving a speech or presentation or involved in an activity, that was really important. And then the lovely and talented Ashley Ford and I gave a good presentation this morning on showcasing. And when I got to this idea of matsuri, that students, that we should have showcasing should be like a matsuri, a festival, it made sense because at the festivals, the students get excited, they get motivated, they make their projects and they are so proud of it. They work together and they use English in the creation of the project and so on. And so that is what I really enjoy. I enjoyed so much, I made my own textbook with George. And the one activity that we do is called Living Newspaper Readers Theater. And that is, you take several news articles, you put them together, and the students can create their own performance from picking and choosing from those pieces, and then practice it and then perform it for the entire group. And if you look at our Facebook page, you will see example of many of the people here performing them, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Ashley, since David mentioned you, how about you? So
Okay.
why PAL, and something that worked well, an example?
Okay, well, why PAL, or performance-based learning? As many people have mentioned, it's active and it's engaging, and it's really student-centered learning. And I like how it emphasizes a process of learning, and you can really focus on preparing for some performance or preparing for something. I also like that the performance aspect of it is asking them to apply some knowledge, or it's asking them to demonstrate their skill a little bit. So in my courses, I do a lot of music performance. I do a lot of filmmaking, especially, which we talked about today. And for that, you know, filmmaking to me is a record of that process that they're going through, and the way that they demonstrate what they know or what they're learning. And also it's a product too. It culminates in something that is theirs, and something that is original and creative, and something that they can be proud of. That's why I love using it in all of my classes. Just this week, I thought I might share an activity that I did in my class. We're making music videos, and part of our process is learning how to describe different camera angles and how to give instructions as a film director. And so one of the activities I did, I'll just try to share my screen very quickly because I have it up here, was I showed them a music video, just the first 1 minute, and I gave them a music video script, which they will have to use later for their own music videos. But for this activity, I just asked them they needed to recreate the first 1 minute of this music video. And so here we have the different lyrics that they'll have to lip sync, and also the different shots and angles. So they're getting some of that vocabulary and some of those instructions to describe the subject. And then the video that they make, they actually have to go out and do it and apply it and have fun in the process. And then this becomes the record of what they've done. Yes, so that's just one way that I used it in my class this week.
Thank you, Ashley. Eukarya, how about you? Eukarya Donnery.
Hi, well, my goal in using performance in the classroom is to empower my students. And like, I love it because it's learning centered and learner centered. The students, it's holistic, it's output, it's input, they're learning, they're not studying, they're learning. So they're transferable skills that they can use outside the classroom. So yeah, I had two activities that went particularly well. pre-COVID, but one was the enormous typhoon of last year. It blew down my outer wall. I took photos and then made like different countries and their reactions to it, like news clips, and showed it to the students. And I was like, what's happening here? And so we got into a big discussion about climate change. And then I showed about the Tokyo Climate Change March. And I said, right, today we're going to have a march in the classroom. So let's make our banners. And they all made their banners in English. Like my students are not English majors. They're lovable computer geeks. So this was, they wrote it, and then we went around the lab and every person shouted their message, and everyone else had to listen and repeat 3 times. And I have one very reticent English learner. He was like, that was the most enjoyment I've ever had in English. And I just could not stop laughing. The other one was, I showed them Kenichi Ebina's Matrix dance. It won America's Got Talent a few years ago. And I said, okay, today we're going to have Japan's Got Talent. And there was nearly a fist fight. I'm doing Simon Cowell. And I'm like, Janken. So anyway, the judges sat down and I'm like, judges, you tell them what they have to do. So they have to improvise. And some of it, one guy has zero English, seriously. And they just went, dance, 20 seconds. And he did. And then the other ones, one guy who is the class clown, he came in and they said, tell a joke in English. And he did. So they were 2 activities that worked particularly well in the last year.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Gordon, how about you?
Yeah, I work with a lot of first-year students, and so I use, well, first of all, PAL is fun. As George mentioned, PAL is fun, but it is serious learning. And I work with a lot of first-year students, so I want to use it to help build confidence for speaking in front of others. And it does it because it creates a collaborative, kind of a non-threatening environment in the classroom. Helps me out. I also use it to deepen understanding of a lot of the stuff we do in my class, reading, literature type thing. So some fun activities, some successful activities I've done. I'll talk a little bit about radio drama. I do use skits and readers theater as well, but I teach a 2nd-year reading class where it's a required reading class, and I want the students to help teach the class by giving presentations, but presentations they give are usually monotone, and they're not real, their way of speaking is not real exciting. So I want them to speak more expressively. So I've come up with found a radio drama activity actually in this textbook called English Through Drama, Creative Activities for Inclusive ELT Classes by Susan Hilliard. I'll put it on the chat later. But it's called The Love, it's a 3-person, and it's a short 2-minute radio drama called it's a love triangle. But the fun and the purpose is to teach exclamations, hesitations, and interruptions in speech. But it's really fun because the students, they have a chance to create the sound effects for the skit. And what really surprised me, because I do 3 of these type of PAL activities in the class, was when I surveyed them at the end of the class, was that a lot of the students preferred the radio drama. And I asked them why, and they said, I was surprised by some of the answers. I didn't have to show my face. I didn't have to worry about how I looked. And so I think that the radio drama shows kind of a promise to be used with, Japanese students who are very shy in the first place. So, and I also use radio drama right now in a 3rd-year literature class. We're doing, we read a short story called The Killers by Ernest Hemingway. We read the story. Students do presentations about Prohibition era America. And then at the end of the class, to kind of deepen understanding, we do a radio drama of the story. And it's great because students can be creative, and they can choose the sound effects and the music. And they also, it's a small number of characters. They can watch the other groups and listen to their performance, how they do it. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you so much to all the panelists for discussing our first question. For those of you who might have joined us in between, each of the panelists was sharing about why do they use performance assisted learning or performance in education in their classes. And then they were sharing some of the successful activities that they have done in their classes. Thank you. In our next section, I will be addressing a question to 3 panelists at a time. So basically, only 3 panelists are going to respond to one question in this section. My first question would be addressed to Vivian, George, and Ashley. And your question is, what is the process of planning a PIE activity? You will have about 3 minutes per person to respond to this. Ashley, would you like to go first?
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. So the process of preparing for me, well, I think first of all, it starts with the goal. I really want to have a clear goal in my mind of what I'm going to be teaching the students or what I expect them to learn through this activity or through this process. And it helps me stay focused too, and it helps the students stay focused as well. From there, I start to kind of identify the best task or the best performance that I'm going to ask them to do through this. And I kind of envision, with a film, for example, they're going to be making a film. I kind of envision that final product or that final performance, and I work backwards from there. What is the process like of going through that? And then I think for me, the best way is to do it yourself first, at least once, because that way when you do it, you know what goes into it, and you know what the students are going to have to go through, and you can identify their needs or what they're going to need to learn or what they're going to need to know to be successful. So I think that's a really important part of my process is I have to practice what I preach, and I have to, get out there and do it myself. And then once I have a good understanding of that process, then I start to scaffold it for that goal that I'm looking for. Assessment, formative assessment, I think, is a really key part of this process. Peer assessment, teacher formative assessments, and having a clear, rubric for the performance. Yeah, and then at the end, I try to give them as much freedom and choice, and to express themselves and to do it how they want it. I encourage them to be creative in what they can and to make it theirs.
Okay, thank you. So goal, envision, work backwards, scaffold, formative assessment, and creativity and freedom. Okay, 6 great words. Thank you.
Yeah.
David.
If you could put them on chat, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, great.
I'll go ahead
Thank
and
you.
do that, yeah.
Okay, George, how about you? So the question was, just to remind you, what is the process of planning a PIE activity?
Thank you, CD. Yeah, as I kind of intimated in when I was last speaking, I'm just astounded at the talent in this particular SIG. Sometimes it's kind of intimidating for me. So I mentioned the fact that ICT is perhaps one of my strengths, certainly singing, drama, great. So I'll focus kind of my part of this planning discussion on the ICT aspects that can make everyone's life easier. And we have some really experienced teachers here who, like, when they're organizing students and stuff, they'll like use playing cards or any number of different ways to break students into groups or to allow them to choose something, but that can be a fundamental process that can disintegrate into mayhem in no time at all. So for people, especially who are just starting to explore the possibilities, the vast possibilities of PAL, of PIE, I'd like to just share my screen and give you an example of like, okay, especially with online, which is going to be a further discussion, I believe, later. So I won't focus on that too much, but more and more teachers are becoming familiar with online tools. So I'm going to share my screen and just start by talking about, okay, I have a communication channel. There are any number of different channels where you can communicate with your students, but what I like to use is Google Plus communities. And in the communities, one of the things that I would start with for any given PAL activity would be a sign-up sheet. And this goes into what Ashley was saying about, and Vivian, I think also mentioned it, a latitude of choice. Like, I mean, students, when they're given a certain degree of choice, that really helps them to shine. So, so for example, one of the things that I've done, again, inspired by my participation in this SIG, was like I created a poetry unit. And so the poetry, of course, it's like a presentation / recitation type activity, and it begins with people choosing. And so trying to give people a maximum latitude of choice and to get it done fairly effectively without taking up in class time. So as I said, I'm using Google Communities, but there are any number of ways to basically get a spreadsheet to students. And a spreadsheet would look like this, where of course you explain in class, but so for example, I'm looking at a class of 20 here and I say, okay, guys, I've prepared a couple poems for you. You can choose something else if you want. Please get in touch with me about it, because I want it to be short. And particularly, for English majors, I would like to think, regardless of whether they study linguistics or whether they study communications or literature, that they're going to leave a 4-year university program with being able to recite at least part of a poem. So one of the things, of course, like a fundamental is shadowing. So basically what I would ask them to do is to have a look at these particular poems. I'm still working on this list. This is something that I started last year, but I've prepared poems, the transcripts from each of these authors. And what I would ask a student to do, so for example, student 1, okay, get in there and look, and there's tabs along the bottom, and those tabs you can read the poem and you can listen to it. So like, I'll share one of my favorite with you. And let's share our sound.
You have 12 seconds left.
12 seconds. Sorry. Okay, so basically planning, yeah, I'll forego that, but basically planning to start with, if you're just getting into this, yeah, if you fear perhaps disintegration of everything, then to have a sign-up sheet to begin with is absolutely key.
Okay, thank you, George.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Could
we stop sharing my screen? Yep. Done.
Yeah, thank you so much. So thank you for sharing about how can we adapt PIE in the times of online learning, and even after that, there'll be a later point of time in today's SIG forum when we'll discuss that particular issue. Vivian, yes, so the question is, what are the steps of planning a PIE activity?
Thank you, CD. So let me get back to some of the points that Ashley pointed out, because I think they're really important and I would agree with her. So first of all is deciding what is your goal? What do you want your students to accomplish? And then what activity do you think would give them enough freedom and pleasure, but still allow them to accomplish that goal? And Ashley did mention preparing ahead and counting. And I like to count backwards. I teach some courses that are for a whole semester, 14 weeks. And I do teach courses that are quarters, so 7 weeks. And it's hard sometimes to decide, is this doable in this amount of time? And we need to remember that students are not used to this type of learning many times. And when you just throw it out there, they're going to be panicked. They don't think that they can accomplish such things. So the hardest I feel is when you're trying to do something new, you haven't really done it before. And so you don't have samples to show them. I think that's the hardest, because once you've done it, then you can show them how other students accomplish these things. And you can show them, I want you to create these videos, and they're like, oh my gosh, we can't. So when you show, look at what these students have done, and they're like, oh, that was great, and they enjoy, and so they see how they can get there. So for me, the hardest is not having the samples. But yeah, have a goal and lead the students to see that goal and see what they can accomplish, and then count backwards and make sure that you are setting up each week to build into the process of getting them to reach that goal. And then we need to remember that it is a process in the preparation, but the performance is really where they have the chance to shine. So we need to allow that not to be rushed through, and make sure that they do have enough time to perform. Sometimes you might need 2 weeks for performances. And what I'm doing a lot now when I feel a press for time is to even allow them to do a lot of that online on demand. So peer evaluations and self-evaluations are things that they can easily make if we use Google Forms, for example. Also easy for us to get all of the feedback, and then give that feedback to the student in the end, I think is really important, because they need to receive the feedback after they have accomplished such a great goal. So I make sure that they receive all of the comments that students have written. And by doing it online, like on Google Forms, it's really easy for you to organize that. So giving them freedom and then monitoring the process and allowing them to be a part of it, part of the whole thing, not only performance, I think is really important. So thank you, CD.
Thank you so much. So counting backwards, scaffolding step by step, and importance of giving feedback as well, and enough time to really shine in the performative aspect of it. Thank you. For those of you who know me, scaffolding is my big word for drama. So yes, thank you so much. So thank you, Ashley, Vivian, and George. My next question would be addressed to Yvonne, Eukarya, and David. And my question for you is, according to you, what are the challenges or potential challenges that you have faced in your performance-assisted learning classes that you have faced or somebody else might face? Let's begin with Yvonne.
Okay, hi. So thank you so much. So I'll speak from my experience in public speaking. So I actually improved my confidence in speaking through public speaking. So in my opinion, I think it's challenging to teach public speaking and presentation. Okay, so because it requires constant practice, reflection, and also evaluation. And for the general English course that I'm teaching right now provides very limited space and time for me to solely focus on public speaking. And also, secondly, things that I have no control over are students' fear and anxiety of public speaking. So I know some students, they even like struggle to speak in front of people in their native language, let alone English, their second language or foreign language. So, and also some students, they are, I would say, like they want to deliver perfect presentation. So a lot of times they forget the purpose of presentation is to increase confidence of speaking in a second language, so in front of people, and somehow they focus so much on their grammar and so much on their vocabulary. Am I doing good enough? That kind of like pressure on them. I think this is one of the reasons why they have fear and anxiety, I suppose. Yes, so thank you so much.
So thank you so much. Yeah, some factors that we cannot control, perhaps, such as students' fears and anxieties, and how we need to remind that the purpose of a presentation is to gain confidence and practice speaking and not be perfect. Thank you. Eukarya, how about you? Potential challenges or challenges you have faced?
Sometimes the students accuse me of being that drama is childish, and I'm like, let's unpick this a little bit more. And why do you think drama is childish? Because we did similar things, this kind of active learning. The teacher withholds the information when we were in elementary school, and I'm like, well, how did you like your elementary school life? Oh yeah, it was really fun, and we did, it was very like dynamic. And then they get to junior and senior high school, where learning gets really tight, and it goes from learning to study. And I'm like, so how did the study work out for you? And they were like, I hated it. It was dark. I hate English. And I'm like going, great. So how about we go back to that elementary school way of teaching again, and like make it about learning, that it's not just you study words for a test and then you forget about them 2 days later. So yeah, drama is really, well, performance of any kind is very active, and you need to be engaging. And I have this student in my seminar class. I do seminar classes 2nd, 3rd and 4th. He's now a 3rd year. He's been in my class since 2nd year. He's the quietest guy. And last week in presentation skills, he gave a bulletproof presentation. I just went, you know, you should actually teach some of the teachers how to do a presentation. He was so good. So like it can really empower students. I'm like going, it seems that it is childish because it brings you back to elementary school style of education. And there are like the elementary school education system in Japan is seriously good. I've done some research into it in the past, and it does promote active learning and for students to seek out the information in groups collaboratively, which like ping, ping, ping for drama too. So I think that's
Thank you.
enough.
So yeah, reminding students that that fun, enjoyment, and active participation does not mean that learning is not happening, and just reminding them about the joy in learning. Often, when faced with a similar situation, I often tell them, what is the idea behind what we are doing? What is the learning goal involved, which we'll try to achieve through this activity. And because I teach university students, they are usually old and mature enough to understand and appreciate that. Thank you. David, potential challenges or challenges you have faced?
Of course, the challenges I faced are the same ones that the other two members of the have pointed out. But I think one other thing is that the students have this certain amount of inertia. That is, they're sitting in the seats. They're sitting in the seats every class. And they can sit in the back row and basically tune out of the entire class. So they've got this set of inertia that says, I can get by with putting as little energy into the class as possible. And then the teacher comes along and says, we're going to do performance-assisted learning, performance-based learning, performance in education. And they go, yada, I don't want. As a matter of fact, even though they are 20 years old, they are more like Oba-chans and Oji-chans in their desire not to move, because, well, I think actually some of it is that they're so tired from their part-time jobs that they'd rather just kind of chill out in class. And most of the teachers who teach performance in education don't allow them to chill out. So instead, what they do is they start out with a little bit of resentment towards performance activities until they finish their first project. And they say, huh, that was pretty interesting, and I enjoy it. So the challenge is to get them through that first activity so that they realize then what it's all about. And what's really important is to have them debrief in their groups of what they learned.
Absolutely.
Because then they say, this wasn't just play. It was education. And it was something interesting. Now, one of the groups I have teaches 2nd year engineering students, and so Eukarya can really relate to this. And they said, when I asked them what they do for the weekend, they often say, I studied calculus, I studied engineering, I studied physics. I got, okay. And then when we try to do oral interpretation readers theater, and they said, what is this? And I say, listen, when you're
15
engineering,
seconds.
yes, when you're engineering, you take what's on the paper and you make it real. You make the plans real. That is what you're doing with this readers theater. You're taking the things on the paper and you're making it real. And then they got really good.
Okay, thank you. So when faced with inertia or resistance, first get them to get them a taste of it, basically. Get them hooked onto it by getting them through the first activity. And once that first activity happens, then hopefully things will be more successful. Post-process reflection activities are important, as David pointed out. What did they learn through the process? And also connecting it to their life. You know, what learning that is happening through this particular activity or approach is reflected in real life as well. So it's not just about this teacher's class, but it's about life. So thank you, David. Thank you, Yvonne, Yukari, and David for responding to our question. My next question would be to Yukari Saiki, Chelsea, and Gordon. My question to you is, what tips will you give to a teacher who wants to try performance in education for the first time? My first, could Yukari please respond first?
Okay, I will. Thank you, CD. I think you can start with whatever you like. You can use music, movies, picture story, drama, or debate. But I strongly recommend that it has to be simple, especially for the beginning. And also exciting, and if you possible, unexpectable. You don't have to worry about the results. You may fail. I don't want to hope, but maybe you might fail. But there are so many treasures in the place of failure. So don't be afraid, just do it.
Okay, thank you. Don't be afraid of failure, just do it. Sounds good. From an improvisation expert, sounds exactly how I expected. Okay, so my next question, Chelsea, could you please respond? What steps should a new person wanting to try it for the first time take?
Sure,
Or
thank
what
you.
advice would you give? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I think it's really important to keep it simple, as Yukari just mentioned, but also you need to scaffold the process as well. Yeah, CD's mentioned this is very important because you can't just like throw them in and expect them to do it. It's going to take time. So I think by scaffolding and starting with very simple activities is important, and show them examples of the results and what you're looking for ultimately. If you're choosing to make a commercial or a movie or whatever it is, try to show them a very concrete example and help them build up to that. And I think also just make sure it's very enjoyable for them. Please encourage them. I think the teacher being positive and encouraging is really the key here. And you have to be very patient, because this may be very new for students that have never performed in their life, or some of them might be very shy. So I think it's important for you to kind of sustain that positivity and make it very enjoyable for everybody so that they're able to do it and do it successfully as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So scaffold and ensure to sustain positivity through that process of scaffolding. Thank you. Gordon.
Yeah, I would just say, don't worry that you're not an expert in some of these things. You don't have a lot of experience doing them. It doesn't matter. Okay, you can learn through trial and error. I'll just tell you a quick story. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was asked to teach a drama class at my university, and I had no experience with drama. I was, you know, what am I going to do? I was really worried. I was scared. You know, I don't have a drama background, but I did it at little trial and error, and I discovered, you know, some of the great points of using PAL and drama in the classroom. So I would just experiment, trial and error. But like everybody else has said, you know, keep it simple, and don't be afraid to simplify things, especially if you're working with scripts, kind of some complicated scripts. Don't be afraid to change the script Dialogue is often better than narration. If there's a lot of narration in what you're doing, try and eliminate as much as you can. And also what helped me was I joined the speech drama and debate SIG. I joined the PIE SIG, okay? So go to join the PIE SIG, go to PIE events, and learn from people there. And also, yeah, like I said, David, we've been having Zoom sessions on Friday nights, kind of mentoring each other, and I think we're going to be continuing that as well. So, yeah, I guess that would be my my advice for someone that's wanting to get into trying PAL. Thanks.
Thank you. Well spoken, coordinator. So I would just like to echo something that Gordon said, that yes, at the end of the day, JALT is a professional development space. So it's not only for, you know, university teachers, school teachers, any person who has been a drama kid all along, but it's also for those who want to venture into new territory. And yes, so just kind of echoing what Gordon said, happy to have you. Why don't you get involved with the Performance in Education SIG, and let's support each other, let's mentor each other, and let's do the best for our students. Thank you for responding to those questions, Yukari, Chelsea, and Gordon. Now we come to the last topic for today's panel discussion, which is what's happening in the world right now. My question is, do you have any comments on PIE in the time of COVID-19 induced emergency remote teaching? I will start this. It is an open-ended question to the panelists. You raise your hand and I'm going to choose three of you, I'm sorry, three of you to respond to this question. I'll just begin with my brief experience. I usually deal with a lot of role plays. I include something called process drama. And for me, drama is a social activity about the magic that happens when there's a bunch of people in the room. However, there were new challenges presented when online teaching started. But now for the classes where I was doing process drama, I'm doing process radio drama. So my students are going to record a radio play. And for the classes where I did usual role plays, I have moved into storytelling. And we are working on how can a narrative be narrated in a performative aspect. So I'm looking at some indigenous storytelling forms from India and trying to incorporate those into my English classes. So yes, sometimes, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. So what do you think about PIE in the time of emergency remote teaching? Yes, David.
One of the things, as I mentioned before, I like to do readers theater and oral interpretation. And these are group activities, which were great before, but in this time it is very, very difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult to do. So in this book, I also did a lot of presentations or speeches. And so what we've done is we've concentrated more on speeches, presentations, and Flipgrid has been amazing in helping with that. And I was talking to Ashley this morning or yesterday, and she mentioned that she does debate but it's more asynchronous debate. And so that's something that I'd like to try. So that's the second thing, that is, it has expanded of course there are limitations, but it has also expanded my capabilities and my vision of how to use performance assisted learning in the classroom in times like this. So there have been a lot of positive things that I really think have come out of this, and I think will change my teaching in the future. So there are some good things, but there's some bad things, but there are also some very good things.
Thank you. Ashley.
Okay, I just wanted to say some really quickly. I noticed a couple of things just in I've only taught online for 6 weeks because we're back face to face now. But one thing I noticed that really surprised me was improved quality of their performances sometimes because of being online. And I'm not sure exactly the reason for this. Maybe it's because they had a little more time, or maybe they had some sense of responsibility. I'm not sure, but I've done oral interpretation in my presentation classes for years. And when they stand in front of the audience, it's better, right? But this time when they had to create videos to do it, the videos blew me away. And I'm not sure why, but it was a very unexpected, and I was happy to see that. On the other side, I think the online is the challenge for us is they kind of lose that energy that they get from other people, and they feed off of each other. And so any way that you can do to connect to them, whether it's through Zoom, but also outside of the class, that you could encourage them to comment on each other's works, and getting them to give more feedback, and just connecting them is I think going to be helpful, because they need that connection to get that energy from their audience, connect them to the audience.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. We have time for one more comment. Panelists. Okay, Vivian.
Okay, so I just want to share some ideas of things I've been trying out this semester. So I use a lot of living newspaper or readers theater with the news, where they have to read news articles and then create scripts out of those and act them out, is what I've done before COVID-19. And I think that's a really great activity for my literacy class. And I would like them to still do it, because they read, they write, they work together, they learn some IT skills when they collaborate, like on Google platforms, etc. So the videos are just coming in this week, so I can't comment yet on how they look. But I've asked students to take 1 week that would be the performance week, and instead of meeting with me on Zoom, they each had to meet with their Zoom leader in their group, which would be the host for the Zoom meeting. And after they could practice as many times as they wish, they would finally send me just the recording segment of their final performance. And I asked them to do it as much as possible like Readers Theater would be, where they would be holding like a folder and try to stand so that we can see your upper body, but remember, speak out and make sure your volume is okay, and try to use upper body movements or facial expressions. Don't cover your face with your file, and then have your label of the character that you are on your Zoom screen, and a tag or something. So I kind of guided them with some guidelines for the Zoom recordings, and now they're sending in the recordings. So each group met in their own Zoom rooms, and they recorded that. Then they edited that to just send me the videos that I wanted to receive. And now will be the process where, even though they didn't perform in the classroom like they would have before COVID-19, I'm uploading those to OneDrive or Dropbox, and students will be watching each video and then creating the feedbacks that they can receive later. So that's one way that Zoom has worked for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I know we can have a special SIG forum on this topic, because it is so topical. And as David said, I think there are many new things to learn, which I'm sure a lot of us will keep as a part of our teaching repertoire going forward. Before we move on to the audience question, answer, and interaction time in breakout rooms, I just have one last, not a closing comment actually, but there's a concern I would like to address from some of the things I was seeing in the chat. Yes, drama can be of many kinds. It can be fun, light-hearted themes, but it can also be serious topics. For example, in my classes, my students have talked about aging population. They have spoken about LGBTQ rights. This semester, they are making radio dramas on COVID-19. So, you know, there is no limitation to what the theme is, precisely why we call it performance-assisted learning. You are assisting the process of whatever that needs to be learned in terms of content or language through various performance activities. So, it's all parts of the spectrum can be catered to through performance activities. Okay, now what we are going to do is, so perhaps this is the last time I'll be talking to the group. So once again, thank you so much to all the panelists for their wonderful words of wisdom and hopefully useful tips. Now we'll be breaking into 3 breakout rooms, and we are going to have 3 of the panelists in each of the rooms. Audience members, please feel free to address your questions, interact, have a great time. However, we don't have a lot of time to do this. We have about 6 minutes to do this. So Linda, if you could please make 3 groups.
Linda, could you put me into room 3? Ooh, let's see. Could you put me into room 3? Reese G. Your mic's not on. I'm sorry.
Okay, I will put you into breakout rooms. Hang on just a minute.
Yeah. Could you put me in room 3?
Okay. Okay, move to room 3. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, did you go there?
I'm just getting the message now.
Oh, okay. Those of you who are still in this room, if you are struggling to join a breakout room, please unmute yourself and I'll try to help you. Okay. Oops, 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 oops.
Linda, can we
Hi.
close all the rooms because we have 1 more minute left? So
Just close them.
just you can send them a message saying, please return time up, and then could you please close all the rooms? Okay, and now we
Okay.
can close. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, 42.
Oh, I
That's
didn't
okay.
change the time for the rooms to close, so it's a full minute.
That's okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Let's give them a minute to complete. It would have
Right.
been too. They're doing well in terms of time. We're good.
Good.
Life is good.
Yeah, it's frustrating for me to not be able to join the conversation in the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I mean, they've been just general. People
Yeah.
have been discussing struggles with online classes because that's what has been on their minds.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just struggling. That was the conversation.
Oh gosh,
that was
that's been
happening.
such a struggle.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know
So-
the app or the website called Vocaroo?
No, I don't.
It records just voice. It's not a video recording. I'll put it in the chat.
Could you please do that? That'll be great.
Sorry,
Okay.
cut you off.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry, welcome back everyone. I'm sorry we need to stay on time. So before I hand it over to Ashley to conclude, could one panelist from each breakout room extremely briefly summarize what happened in your breakout rooms? Let's begin with Vivian, since you're the fast speaker. Lightning presentation, go.
Okay, so we got a question from one of the audience members about the types of classes that we teach, if they're electives or mandatory courses, and then how we incorporate performance into those and how we work with the lack of freedom that we have. And so we could share about just simple ways to do that from the fixed curriculum. And that was pretty much it.
Okay, Chelsea.
We talked about body language that we could use to communicate with students. So we talked about using the thumbs up. I said I have students raise their hand. We talked about using the chat if students, they want to ask something, but not to everybody, so they can ask the teacher. That's been very useful. And then we had a question about something to use in the classroom that's not going to take over everything, but it's still a little bit of performance-based aspect. So I suggested doing role play. That's something very simple that you can either use from a book or you can adapt and make your own conversation so that students, they have that performance element, but they're also practicing different skills. So yeah, that was basically, and then we got cut off.
Okay, third group. I don't know who. Third group.
I'll say we had basically we addressed one issue that was brought up by Nicholas Wilson, and that is what can a beginner do with drama? A beginner teacher a beginner in drama who teaches at elementary schools, and we talked about the idea that process drama developed in British elementary schools, and if you look at process drama, you'll see on the internet you'll see a lot of good sources of step-to-step activities that you can do. And Brian, what was the website you said again?
It's called dramaresource.com.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Good
that's basically what we did.
Thank you. And
there's another website that you could use. It's called Twinkle, TWINKL. And Twinkle is what they use in Scotland You can they've got drama stuff in there, but also they've got the whole curriculum. It's the curriculum for excellence, so it's worth a look. I'll put it in the comment. I'll put it in the chat. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yukaria, you wanted to add something? I know what, so add.
Okay, there's a book called Planning Process Drama. It's like the Bible for process drama, and it gives loads of insight. The other one is Words into Worlds. I'll write the information in the chat box. So thank you.
So thank you so much, everyone. And now I would like to hand over to Ashley.
Before you do that, sorry. Oh wait, I disappeared. Sorry. If I would like to put this into the chat box, if you have questions and you want to ask more questions, we will continue the Q&A on this. Let's see here. On this site from 2:50. Okay.
So that's like the after party.
Yes.
Yes.
If you want that site, copy it now, because as soon as we close this room, that will disappear.
Yes. Ashley.
Okay, all right. So I posted a link just now in the chat for our forum survey. So if you have a couple of minutes, you can give us some feedback on today's presentation. That would be amazing. And I would just like to tell you about some of the ways that you can keep in touch with us and join some of our events in the future. So first on the handout, on the last page of the handout, we have a lot of links here that you could use, information about how to join JOLT and become a member of our SIG. You can check out our website. We also have a Facebook group and a Facebook page, so feel free to follow us at Performance in Education SIG. We also have Twitter, so you can follow us at JOLT_PIE. And we've got a YouTube channel. So we're going to be posting some videos on here of some presentations, and that is JALT PanSIG. We've also got some upcoming events for our SIG. We're very active. We're going to be doing another forum at JALT 2020, so please join us if you have a chance. And then we have the Performance in Education Online Conference, which has been postponed until February of February 20th, 2021, and we will be accepting proposals for that. So please check it out.
Until November 30th.
Yes, and at the plenary speaker will be Rod Ellis for that.
Yes.
Okay.
And then finally, our publications. We've got a publication coming up. The deadline for submissions is July 31st of this year. So please, please submit some articles for us and we'll get you published.
Okay, and we have 2 more minutes left. So I'm so glad that we are running completely on time. Gordon, any closing comments from the coordinator, please?
Yeah, I'll just follow up there on what Ashley said. Yeah, I know a lot of you are probably using some kind of performance in your classroom. We would love to have you write up something in one of our publications. The masking gavel, we produce a masking gavel every year. The deadline for submission is July 31st. If you're interested, please submit. We'll also have a post-conference publication after the February Research and Practice Conference. So if you need a publication this year, definitely come to the conference, present. And if you follow the right steps, you could probably get that done by the end of this year. So that's all I have to add. And I think we're just about out of time here, CD. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that came today. And thank you for supporting the PIE SIG.
Thank you. And see you at the after party.
And if you can unmute your mics and just say thank you and clap. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
CD.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I have to end this meeting, but the plenary starts in the main hall at 3 o'clock. So if you want to go to David's chat and continue this, copy the link from the chat now before I close the room, because it will disappear as soon as I close the room. So,
Thank you for being such a good room host. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Linda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I hope to see you at the next meetings. Thank you.
Acquaintance
Thanks, everyone.
we forgot.